Hello everyone, my name is Arya and welcome to the video. Let's talk about pistols, a staple of many loadouts and a weapon class with a fair amount of variety. But which are the best and which are the worst? Well, that's what I aim to do today with a pistol tier list. I will try to rank all the pistols as objectively as possible based off of certain traits such as combat effectiveness, utility, ease of use, and price. This list will not be perfect, but as someone who's put a decent amount of time into almost all the pistols in the game, I think I can at least make a half-decent tier list that hopefully you'll all agree with. And if you don't, why not let me know with a comment telling me what you would change? And while you're down there, why not click the like and subscribe button to let me and the algorithm know that you like this video? But that's enough of an intro, and let's get this tier list started. Starting off with the Bornheim, this thing had a massive fall from grace a few years back and has slowly gone from pretty objectively the worst pistol in the game to an alright one. It shoots fast and has a speed loader, but at the end of the day, it's still the only non-tool weapon to take 3 shots to kill to the chest, doing the same amount of damage as the Derringer at 74. It also has very bouncy recoil, meaning that fast fire rate it sports is hampered a bit because you won't be able to actually see what you're shooting at unless you pace your shots. That being said, it does have a pretty tight hipfire, so it can definitely get the job done up close by spamming, but will often lose out to weapons like the Officer, Spitfire, and New Army at anything past 20-ish meters just because of that extra shot needed to kill. It also ejects on reload, and the special ammo isn't really anything to talk about, so even though it's in a much better place than it was a year or two ago, it's still just a little bit underwhelming, landing it firmly in C tier. The Bornheim Extended has all the same issues that the regular Bornheim has, and the extra ammo in the clip is nice, but you sacrifice that speed loader that all the other variants have, making it, in my opinion, a side grade at best. Personally, I like having that speed loader, so it goes slightly behind the base Bornheim. The Bornheim match is a base Bornheim, but has been modified to fix a lot of the issues present with the other versions. It deals slightly more damage than the others, meaning it's the only Bornheim variant that can get a 2-shot to the chest. The added stock also greatly improves the recoil, meaning it's a lot more predictable in its recoil patterns and can be used a lot more comfortably at longer ranges. It does still have compact ammo damage drop-off, so pretty much anything past 20-ish meters will likely still drop it to a 3-shot, same with getting an arm or a leg shot, but it's still a much more usable variant that I'm kind of surprised that I don't see more often. So because of that, I'll place it a tier above in B tier. The Bornheim Silencer again has all the same issues as the base Bornheim, but has even lower damage drop-off, muzzle velocity, and headshot range due to the silencer. You really need to use this thing at close range, and that 48-meter headshot range should be indicative of that. But the added utility that it provides while still being a half-decent close-range weapon should not be understated. It really bridges the gap between a high utility and a pure PvP weapon. You can still spam down people if needed, but you can also deal with pesky hives, grunts, or sound traps with ease. And for that reason, I believe it is a very slept-on weapon, and I'll go ahead and put it in the B tier, right behind the Bornheim match. Moving on to the New Army, this might make a few people upset because I know this weapon has a bit of a cult following, but hear me out. The New Army has a good rate of fire, very good special ammo with Doom and FMJ being available, and that's about where the benefits end. The glaring issue most people have with the New Army is that abysmal muzzle velocity at only 230 meters per second, and 200 with either of the special ammo options equipped. 200 meters per second, by the way, is only 50 more than the crossbow. But that's not my biggest issue with this weapon. My biggest issue is that over time it has just been overshadowed by all of its competition, and it doesn't have any unique benefits anymore. It used to be the only fast-firing pistol with Doom, but now the Officer, Spitfire, and even the Dolch have it now. It is the only fast-firing compact pistol with FMJ, but the Spitfire also has access to that while still having a higher muzzle velocity and more damage for a negligible price increase. You could argue that it has a faster reload because the cylinder pops out, allowing you to eject all the rounds at once, but again, the Spitfire also does that. It does have some slight stat increases over the Officer, but the ones it does have are basically meaningless as they're either too small to notice, or in the case of damage, it doesn't hit any breakpoints. This weapon used to be so unique and charming, but has just really been overshadowed in every single way to the point where it feels like there's no real reason to run it unless you just enjoy how it feels. And while that is a valid reason to run a weapon, this is an objective list, and for that I'm going to put it in C right behind the Bornheim, even if it pains me to do so. As for the New Army Swift, it can get you out of a tight spot with that speed loader, but the New Army already doesn't have a ton of ammo, and ejecting up to 5 bullets at a time just to top up can really bleed your reserves dry. The base version already has a relatively quick reload as previously mentioned, so I think most players will just find more success and less frustration just using the base version. D tier for this variant. Onto the conversion pistol family, which has probably the largest distribution of placements in this tier list. The base conversion pistol is a classic. It's cheap, the sights are clean, and it's one of the best pistols to use with fanning because of its fast fire rate, tight spread, and sizable ammo reserves. It also has access to FMJ, which helps mitigate the issues that compact ammo has, such as penetration and damage drop-off. And all of these things are great, but for only $25 more, you can just buy a PAX, which has better damage retention, more special ammo, including all the kinds that the conversion pistol has access to, and it's still just a solid option with fanning. $2,500 more for a pistol that's just as good or better in almost every aspect just kinda seems like a no-brainer. It's in a similar situation to the New Army, but unlike the New Army, the conversion pistol doesn't really have any glaring downsides on top of being outclassed, so for that I'll go ahead and place it in the B tier, right above the Bornheim match. Now let's talk about the chain pistol. This weapon is by far the biggest new player trap in all of Hunt Showdown. At first glance, you immediately think, oh my goodness, this thing is going to be a monster with fanning, and to be honest, that's what I thought too when I first started playing Hunt. However, it's arguably one of the worst fanning pistols in the entire game for 2 reasons: spread and fire rate. Compared to the base conversion pistol, the chain pistol has a much slower fire rate and much wider spread to compensate for having nearly 20 bullets in its chain. Sure, since it's RNG, you could get a kill within those first few shots, but due to how big the spread is, you're more than likely going to have to dump more rounds down range than most of the other pistols before you actually get a kill, and this is the issue that we have with the chain pistol. Almost any other pistol in the game will kill faster with fanning because they are more consistent. Having those 17 rounds is nice if multiple people are rushing you, but with some good positioning and movement, that shouldn't be an issue you're running into too often, and again, with how inconsistent the chain pistol is, you're also not guaranteed to win that situation anyways. It does put a lot of pressure on your enemy, as with that many rounds being shot, you will likely kill whatever you're shooting at eventually, but would you rather put pressure on someone while still giving them admittedly a much harder opportunity to fight back, or just outright kill them instead? The chain pistol encourages bad habits, and I guarantee you that 99% of players will have more success with almost any other fanning pistol, so for that, I am going to place it in D tier below the New Army Swift. And now from one of the worst pistols to one of the best, was there any real doubt where the uppercut was going to go? It's the pistol of choice for so many meta loadouts, whether it be used as a pocket rifle for a close range build, or an ammo supplement for a long ammo rifle. It's really hard to go wrong with an uppercut. It does enough damage to down a hunter missing a small bar, it has plenty of penetration because it's long ammo, and has a very comfy muzzle velocity at 410 meters per second, which is very similar to commonly used weapons like the Winnie, Vetterli, and Pax True Shot. Sure, it sucks with fanning and dual wield, but that's not really how the weapon is intended to be used, and while that $414 Hunt price tag is on the more expensive side, it's well worth it because this pistol is just a cut above the rest. No pun intended. S tier, no questions asked. The uppercut precision is, stat-wise, just a better uppercut. Less sway, faster fire rate, and all of the upsides that make the uppercut so great. However, I'm going to put it just slightly below the base uppercut, as the stat increases are nice, but I think what makes the uppercut so good is being a single slot weapon. The precision variant is just less versatile because it requires you to either bring a medium slot loadout or invest in Quartermaster, which isn't hard to do with trait refunding, but it might limit some of the better traits you can bring for a fresh hunter, such as Necromancer, Resilience, or Doctor. It is just a direct upgrade once you've won a match or two and have the points to afford luxury traits such as Quartermaster, but for a fresh hunter, the base uppercut is just going to be easier to fit into a wider variety of loadouts. Still a top tier pistol though, and it goes in S tier right behind the base version. The Uppercut Precision Deadeye is a very fun weapon, but the Deadeye scope has never really been super popular among players, and to be honest, this weapon's just a little bit gimmicky. Most players will likely have more success with the regular Precision variant, as while the scope can be nice for longer ranges, it kinda demands headshots due to it still having pistol damage drop off, which starts at only 20 meters. Still a very fun weapon and one that I really want to use more, but I'm going to drop it down a tier from its siblings and put it in A tier. Moving on to another great choice, the Pax is the epitome of a jack-of-all-trades pistol. It's cheap, it has a huge selection of custom ammo, having access to every single type available to pistols except for explosive ammo. It has decent damage and penetration because it's medium ammo, and it works well with fanning and dual wielding to boot. It's an extremely solid pick that ticks all of the boxes for a good, well-rounded secondary, and it's not the best at anything in the pistol class, but that just further reinforces that jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none mentality. It doesn't have the sheer power that the uppercut provides, nor the fanning speed or accuracy of some of the compact pistols, but it's still a great pick for anyone who wants a cheap, no-nonsense secondary, and for that, it goes in A tier just behind the Uppercut Precision Deadeye. The Pax Claw is identical to the Pax, but with a little knife attached to the grip. It's basically just a direct upgrade to the Pax and can be used for dealing with Hellhounds effectively, as it will kill them in one stab. A tier right above the base Pax. The Pax True Shot is also quite similar to the base Pax, but with a huge increased muzzle velocity with very minimal downsides. The price is almost doubled, but $141 hunt dollars isn't terrible, and it's well worth it for that muzzle velocity increase, which can be further increased to nearly 600 meters per second with high velocity ammo. The fire rate is slightly slower, but I've only ever noticed it when using the pistol with fanning, but to compensate, this pistol also has the tightest fanning spread in the entire game, making it very consistent even when going for longer distance fans. Arguably the best pistol you can buy for under $200 hunt dollars, and I believe it goes at the top of A tier, right above the Uppercut Precision Deadeye. The Dolch, the most expensive pistol family in the game by far, and like the Uppercut, anyone who's played this game for even an hour should know where this weapon is going to go. It shoots fast, has a ton of ammo, a very fast muzzle velocity for a pistol at 440 meters per second, a speed loader from empty, and has access to super strong special ammo types being FMJ and Doom Doom. FMJ specifically is incredibly strong in the Dolch as it behaves similarly to medium ammo FMJ, allowing you to shoot through most materials and get some rather long distance 2-taps as long as you can control the recoil or you pace your shots, because similar to the Bornheim, that recoil can be a little bit jarring when firing at full speed. The price is also obviously steep, and it does eject on reload, but bullet grubber exists, and if you're buying a Dolch, you either have more than enough cash to splash, or you just don't care about the well-being of your hunt wallet. However, I don't think that it's necessarily better than the Uppercut due to the sole reason that the Uppercut does 125 damage, allowing you to down a hunter with a single shot to a chest assuming they've already lost a small bar, while the Dolch will still require 2 shots to down in the same situation. So for that, I believe the Dolch still goes in S tier right behind the Uppercut, but above the Uppercut Precision due to it being single slot with more versatility as previously mentioned with the Uppercut. And now I'm going to go back on my words a bit with the Dolch Precision, but please just hear me out. The stock on the Dolch P greatly reduces the bouncy recoil present with the base Dolch and also tightens up the hip fire quite a lot. Unlike the Uppercut Precision, the Dolch Precision fires fast enough to actually benefit from having that recoil reduction, and this allows you to get those longer range 2-taps a lot easier, and with the tight hip fire you can just spam people down at close range without even needing to really account for recoil. The sheer ease of use that this weapon has outweighs the downsides present, and is enough of a benefit to put it above the Uppercut despite it not doing more than 125 damage. I truly think that all the S tier weapons are interchangeable to a degree, and it's really hard to put them in order because they're all just so good. But the Dolch Precision undoubtedly belongs in S tier, and I'm going to put it above the Uppercut. The Dolch Claw is, on the other hand, going right above the base Dolch because they're basically identical, but the little knife grip can come in handy every now and then, especially when dealing with Hellhounds, so S tier it goes. The Dolch Deadeye is very similar to the Uppercut Precision Deadeye, and pretty much every talking point I made about that weapon applies to the Dolch Deadeye. Fun, but gimmicky and harder to use effectively, I'll put it right behind the Uppercut Precision Deadeye because that one at least has a stock which helps reduce the scope sway when you're lining up those longer range shots. A tier. Moving on to the Lamat, this weapon has gotten quite a few buffs over the last year or so and has gone from being a pretty gimmicky weapon at best to a pistol with some genuine utility. The biggest selling point for the Lamat is that single shotgun shot you get, and after a change back in 1.15, this shotgun isn't actually that bad. It's not great, don't get me wrong, only consistently killing within about 5 to 6 meters with buckshot, but as a nice little panic option or a get off me tool, it's really not that bad. Slugs extend the range to that of about a hand cannon, but obviously require more accuracy, and if you want you can even put Dragon's Breath or Star Shell in it to make it able to burn bodies too. The pistol part is a little bit lackluster, having 9 rounds is nice, but it's not exactly a showstopper, and it's definitely not as great as some of the other pistols when talking about fanning. It can take FMJ though, so that is a plus, and overall this is just a very solid pick if you want some extra close range or body burning utility in your secondary, so I'll put it in A tier right behind the packs. Now we get to talk about a true underdog, the Lamat's big sister, the Upper Mat. This thing was absolutely terrible when it launched, but with several buffs since, it actually has become one of the best pistols in the game currently. It has more ammo than the Uppercut, has the same underbarrel shotgun utility as the base Lamat, and yes, the shotgun stats between the two are identical, same with the special ammo it can bring, and with Desolation's Wake, the Upper Mat finally does 125 damage, meaning it can now kill someone missing a small bar. It does suffer from the same issues as the Uppercut Precision, since it's the only non-precision pistol to be a 2-slot weapon, limiting the loadouts you can bring with it without investing in Quartermaster, but this weapon has had a massive glow up, and I'm so happy to say that it finally belongs in S tier, right up there above the Uppercut Precision. The Officer has always been a decent weapon and a nice complement to any rifle loadout. It shoots fast, has 7 rounds instead of the usual 6, and very clean sights. However, it does have some weird centering issues, meaning that when you fire the Officer, sometimes it'll just jerk in a random direction instead of going back to where you were originally aiming before the shot. This can make it a bit hard to get follow-up shots with, and the 91 damage stat is pretty lackluster, meaning pretty much always you're going to have to go for 2 or even 3 shots to down someone. If you can get a feel for it, it is a pretty decent pistol, but it will likely take a little bit of practice to get good with it. I'll put it in B tier, right above the Bornheim Silencer. As for the Officer Brawler, there's literally no downside to taking it, and it allows you to deal with immolators like they're nothing. It's just a direct upgrade, so it goes above the base Officer in B tier. The Nagant always makes me sad to talk about because I feel like people hate on it for being pretty objectively the worst pistol just out of the box, at least when talking about stats. And to be fair, I think it would be objectively the worst pistol in the game, if not for one exception, being fanning. It may not have the tightest spread, but it does have the fastest in-class fire rate, as well as an extra shot in the cylinder, which can sometimes make the difference in a successful fan or not. Unfortunately, if a pistol needs fanning to be good, I can't justify putting it very high on the list. In a way, it's kind of an inverse of the chain pistol. The chain pistol is an okay pistol when used regularly, but a dumpster fire when fanning. And the Nagant is quite good with fanning, but lackluster at best when used normally. So for that, as much as it pains me because I do love this little gun, I'm going to have to put it in D tier, right above the chain pistol, as I believe it is overall slightly more effective for PvP. As for the Nagant Silencer though, this is one of the best utility weapons in the game, period. Throw poison ammo and fanning on this thing and you can silently demolish any and every AI and target in your path, with the exception of the spider, who is immune to poison damage. It is not at all a good weapon for PvP, being essentially a worse version of the base Nagant, but the sheer utility it provides is unrivaled in the pistol class. Just make sure you're bringing a competent primary because you do not want to whip this thing out to try and kill someone. I'll put it at the top of B tier, right above the conversion pistol. The Nagant Precision is kind of an underrated weapon. It's super cheap, has basically no recoil, and a faster fire rate than the base Nagant, meaning you can just throw round after round at someone's head without needing to recenter or worry about recoil. It does demand headshots though, as again, the damage stat is the same as all the other Nagant and Officer variants, which, need I remind you, is not exactly great, but it can make for some fun medium slot budget loadouts, and personally I like to pair it with a bow for some added stealth utility. Overall though, it is still going to get outgunned by a lot of other pistols, but I'll put it at the bottom of C tier for being more effective than the base Nagant. Another Deadeye pistol, another set of the same talking points. The Nagant Precision Deadeye is a very funky little weapon and is what I would imagine a maxed out starting pistol would look like if Hunt even had a starting pistol, but again, harder to use due to the scope, and I feel most players will have a better time with the regular Precision variant. Still a fun gun, but I'm going to put it in D tier, just below the base Nagant. The Schofield is very similar to the pack stat-wise, only slightly worse. It is still a solid and well-rounded pistol, and since its break action, if you reload from empty, your hunter ejects all the spent casings, allowing for a faster reload. This combined with a tight fanning and dual-wielding spread means the Schofield is well suited for these kinds of playstyles, even if it fires a little bit slow. Honestly though, I feel where the Schofield truly outshines the packs is in the amount of unique variants it has, so while the base Schofield is still a well-rounded pistol that will serve you well, the packs is just better, so the base variant goes right below it in A tier. The Schofield Swift is a fanning dream for obvious reasons. Tight spread and a fast reload means this weapon was basically made to be fanned. You will still eject all unused bullets on a partial reload, which is what brought the New Army Swift down so much, but unlike the New Army, the Schofield can be fanned, meaning that when you pull this thing out, you're more than likely going to be emptying, or at least almost emptying, that cylinder anyways, leading to less wasted rounds. That being said, it does mean that it relies on fanning to make full use of that speed loader, so I'm going to drop it down to B tier, right below the conversion pistol. The Schofield Spitfire is a base Schofield, but is an infinitely better version of it, with the exception of fanning and dual wielding due to the snub-nose barrel increasing the spread drastically. It shoots much faster while still retaining the same well-rounded stats that the Schofield has, and unlike the Officer and the Bornheim, the Spitfire has no wonky recoil or centering issues, and while the muzzle velocity is a bit on the slow side at just under 300 meters per second, it's still nowhere near as bad as the New Army's. The Spitfire is just a super reliable fast-firing pistol with no strings attached, and for that, I'm going to put it just above the True Shot at the top of A tier, although these two are honestly interchangeable depending on what you're looking for in a pistol. The Schofield Precision is very similar to the Nagant Precision, but a little bit more expensive and with quite a bit more punch. As with the other Precision variants, it has less recoil and shoots faster than the base version, but being 2-slot again limits the amount of loadouts that you can make with it without Quartermaster. Still a decent option though, but definitely not nearly as powerful as the top tier 2-slot weapons, whose benefits outweigh their 2-slot status, so I'm going to put the Schofield Precision in the middle of B tier, right behind the Bornheim match. The Schofield Brawler is probably one of the most forgettable variants in the entire game because it's the only melee variant to have a downside to it. As previously mentioned, the Schofield is a decent pistol, but truly shines because of its tight fanning spread. The Brawler has an abysmal spread due to being snub-nosed to accommodate the Brawler attachment. So what you're left with is basically a worse version of the Pax Claw that has terrible fanning accuracy, worse stats, and a slower fire rate. At least it can deal with immolators, but with how popular the knuckle knife is, most loadouts already have a way to deal with them baked into them, making this weapon just a downgrade in nearly every regard. This is easily one of the worst pistols in the game, and the only reason I'm not putting it below the chain pistol is because at least the Schofield Brawler doesn't encourage bad habits. And finally, we have the only pistol to not have a variant due to it being a variant itself, the Sparks pistol. A lot of people think this weapon is only used for pooling extra ammo into your long ammo rifle, and while yes, it can be used for that, and this strat did give rise to the abs mat meta shortly after its introduction, I do think that this weapon has some serious potential. Even if it's a pistol, it is still a Sparks, meaning that you can drop someone to 1 health with that monstrous 149 damage stat. Unfortunately, this comes at the cost of only having a single shot and requiring a lengthy 4-second reload soon after. This weapon is hard to use as your acting long-range weapon for shotgun and other close-range loadouts because if you don't kill with that sparks shot, what are you going to follow up with? Not much, unless you run Flechette due to its increased range. But where I believe the Sparks pistol works best is supplementing lower damage rifle loadouts like the Winnie, Marathon, or Centennial. Having a single high damage, high penetration shot to drop someone who's missing a small bar is really going to give you the edge in longer fights or against teams who prioritize revives. The ability to also take 2 ammo types can be quite nice too, with Poison being my personal pick to help speed up boss takedowns or to one-shot a pesky armored or immolator that's in my way. While the Sparks pistol is hard to use as a traditional pistol, with the right loadout, this thing can turn the tide of a fight in your favor. Just don't miss. I'm going to put the Sparks pistol at the top of B tier, right below the Nagant silencer. And that's it. That is every pistol in Hunt Showdown ranked as of June 2024. Do you agree with this list? Is there anything that you would change? Let me know with a comment, and also tell me if you'd like to see me do more tier lists with other weapon categories, because I'll absolutely do them, but only if you want to see them. But that's all from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!